Of college football showdown here on week 3, on the cusp of week 3. We got some Friday night football kicking off with UNLV going up against help me out here, Matt.
Week 3?
Yeah, we know. We got UNLV going up
Kansas
right
just
now against
kicked a
Kansas.
field goal.
And yes, and Kansas State. See, I didn't want to say the wrong Kansas because I know Kansas State is playing Arizona right now.
Yeah,
that's the ranked game that I got on TV. So yes, sorry about that, folks. But yeah, we got some Friday night football kicking off. UNLV, Kansas. UNLV actually pushing Notre Dame. I mean, not Notre Dame, pushing Northern Illinois for that G5 slot. That number 1 G5 slot, along with like Boise State and company. Because I think those are the 3 teams right now that are probably at the top of the G5 spot to get in that, because that's an automatic bid. Whoever's number 1 ranked G5 school gets in.
Especially after last night, Texas State took a hit with their first loss. So the other 3 are in the driver's seat with 0 losses right now. So we'll see how it all plays out.
But anyways, before we start the show, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And in case you missed us, you can catch us on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. That is on the RSS feed. That's Apple Music, Spotify, Samsung Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. So you guys don't want to miss that content. Start loading these up without backlogging them. Just kind of riff through that. That's a special announcement there. I'm just gonna start loading these up as opposed to going through the backlog of about 150 episodes, which was some technical difficulties. The site that I was loading these episodes on the RSS feed crashed or got taken off. So it's a little harder for me to kind of get these downloaded and share them on the RSS feed for now. So I'll probably just start with this one, put this one on, and then just kind of go forward. And if you guys want to catch all the old episodes, you guys can just, all the previous episodes from last year, you can just go on YouTube and Facebook, and you can catch us on there. But anyways, and then catch us on pswmg.com for all our up-to-date content on our website here. But anyways, Matt James, man, like I said, what an eventful week 2 that we had last week. And I'll just go ahead and kick it off.
Yep.
Our Northern Illinois University Huskies with the greatest upset in school history as they upset and stunned number 5 Notre Dame. Actually, my Notre Dame Fighting Irish, because we all know that I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. But in that game, I threw it up to God and I said, you know what? I got my alma mater playing against my favorite college football team of all time since I was a little boy. And I said, you know what? I'm not playing no favorites here. But I did say that to myself. I said, whoever wins, I will show them some pride, right? And I'm a little bit more prideful this week that my alma mater, the school that I graduated from, actually went into Notre Dame and beat Notre Dame, number 5 Notre Dame, 16-14. Just a little bit of rundown for them on the numbers. Look, Antonio Brown was the best player on the field on both sides. He led the Huskies in rushing with 20 carries, 99 yards. He led the Huskies in receiving with 2 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. He had that one long touchdown to start the game. Yep. Ethan Hampton, didn't lose the game. He just was a game manager. 10-19, 198 yards and a touchdown. On the other side, Notre Dame, this year, I don't want to say we, but Notre Dame just doesn't have they don't have the playmakers like they had in previous years, like they had last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever the case is, like they've had when they were under Brian Kelly. And this is what the third bad loss for the Fighting Irish. They lost last year to Marshall early. They lost to Stanford, and now they lose to. Was that 2 years ago? It was 2 years ago or last year, something like that. They lost to Marshall. They lost to Stanford, and now they lose to unranked Northern Illinois from the MAC, who came in. They paid them $1.4 million to come in. Northern Illinois came in, stole the money, and they blocked 2 kicks. They picked off Riley Leonard twice. I said that Riley Leonard last week when they beat Texas A&M. I said Riley Leonard is not the quarterback for this system. The offensive coordinator for Notre Dame is the old offensive coordinator for LSU. He's implementing certain things that Jaden Daniels used to do, except Riley Leonard, he's athletic enough, but he's no Jaden Daniels. And he doesn't have the arm. He's never had the arm, even when he was at Duke, to really beat you. So, like, one of the interceptions, I think, in the fourth quarter was severely underthrown, and he tried to throw it in the seam, and Northern Illinois intercepted it. When it comes down to it, Northern Illinois they played great football on all 3 levels. They won in offense. They won on defense. They won in special teams. And in order to beat a team of Notre Dame's caliber, a number 5 type team, you have to win on all 3 levels of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to play well on all 3 phases. And, I mean, from the get-go, that first touchdown by Northern to Ontario Brown, that I don't even want to call it threaded the pipes. It was even tighter than that. I thought at first he got either knocked down or picked off. Then Brown was off to the races. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much kind of quieted things down for the crowd there in South Bend for the home team. That was huge for Northern. Imagine if they don't make that play and it's 7-0 going from there. So they made the plays. They, as you said, Hampton was a game manager, and that's how you can beat good teams like Notre Dame on the road. And one of the, top defenses, you got to game manage. You don't necessarily have to go out and beat them yourself. Just keep the game within reach, and that's exactly what they did. They played smart football. And, I mean, our Huskies took a huge victory, and hopefully they can carry this forward. I mean, they're going to have a huge target on their back now going into the MAC play.
Oh, I said that.
Next week against Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks after that, they go straight into the MAC.
And they got Toledo on homecoming. Homecoming in a couple weeks, in about a month or so. Right. It's Toledo, coming into town. And we already know what Toledo does. Central Michigan's a good player. I like what you said there, Matt. They are going from being the hunter to the hunted. Especially in the MAC, where we know teams can put up points, stuff can get kind of crazy. That's why we call it MACtion. Those teams in the MAC are going to be putting their best foot forward. Now, I expect, they play Buffalo this week. Then they got to go to NC State. So that's a big hurdle, right? So I told guys online and stuff, I said, look, I don't really – because they jumped from being unranked to ranked in the top 25 in 1 week, 1 win. You beat the number 5 team in the nation. I think you deserve to be top 25, right? But I won't really truly consider them a top 25 team unless they go into NC State, who was ranked at the beginning of the season, who's looking to be ranked again, coming from the ACC, from a Power 5, from a Power 4 conference, right? I expect NIU to go into NC State and win again. I expect them, if they're going to be a top 25 team, I'm going to say they're top 25, they have to go into NC State and have to win, right? forget Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look past Buffalo because that's how you lose games. You got to take care of business with Buffalo. But the big game is NC State. After that, every game that you play, you are going to have to play like it is like you are the best team on the field. Like, because every team in the MAC is going to gun for you. They're going to put their best foot forward to beat you. Will I say this? This is very interesting. Now I pose this question. No was the first MAC team to ever make a BCS bowl. Then we know that Western Michigan followed suit in the Cotton Bowl and all that. No, he made the Orange Bowl with Jordan Lynch. That was his Heisman year. You know, he got invited to New York, all that stuff. But I will say this. Can NIU make the CFP this year? Can they be the first team in the MAC to make the CFP? Because now with the 12-team format, teams from the MAC can actually make the CFP. Teams can actually make the tournament, make the playoff, and go for the national title. So I pose that question to you. Do you think NIU can run the table? Because that's what they have to do. Because they don't have any more ranked opponents. It's not like Notre Dame where they got this one loss, which I'll get to Notre Dame on the flip side here. Where it's like these big teams like in the SEC, like Bama, say Bama loses a game, Georgia loses a game. They can still make the CFP because they play a hard schedule in their conference. NIU doesn't necessarily play a hard schedule after this game that they won.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they do. I mean, as you brought up with their Orange Bowl run, they had a huge target on their back then too. I mean, granted, they lost that heartbreaker at Soldier Field to Iowa, which they had that game. Yes, but they, I mean, had a huge target then too.
They got
ranked
target for
about midway through. Jordan Lynch was having a hell of a year, going towards his Heisman. He got third that year, so now you're playing number 5. Yeah, and you're playing number 5 Notre Dame on the road. Took them down. Go take care of business against Buffalo. NC State has 2 games before they play Northern to get back into the rankings, possibly. And another side note: who's NC State's head coach?
Dave Doeren.
Exactly, and he was Northern's coach back. What in the
spoiler?
Yeah,
if they lose that,
that's another Northern tie right there, which could bring things about here in a couple of weeks. So I mean, especially for us, being Northern grads and everything. So with this all going on, I mean, they got an interesting path. If they can run it, and even if they go into play NC State and lose a close one of them and run the MAC like they did back in 2012 and made the Orange Bowl, I still think they could make the CFP as the top G5 team. But things have to roll their way. So they don't have to necessarily run it all the way.
I think they do.
I think if NC State somehow gets back into the rankings themselves after getting absolutely annihilated by Tennessee at home last. Wow, that's a whole nother story.
They did get annihilated by Rocky Top.
I expected Tennessee to run it against them, but not like they did.
So
NC State had no fight in that. So
I think
in a close one, and if Boise and UNLV, Texas State, the other teams like that, like Texas State loses another one, UNLV falls in this one, which they're driving. I got it on the TV right here, so this is going to come down to the end. I mean, teams like that get 2 or 3 losses. Obviously, they're going to fall behind. The one team I'm really truly worried about in the G5 is obviously Boise State, and a lot of it's their
They just
program's
lost a close one
history.
to
They're
Oregon.
used to it. They lost to Oregon on the road.
And it was a close one.
Yeah. And
Like I'm
Boise's
talking about,
got the
like they
team
should
that
have
can
probably
bounce
beat
back.
Oregon last week.
They could have, and Oregon was in one of those situations where if they lose that, then they're like making themselves look silly coming into this season.
I'm glad you brought that up because so you say Oregon, they lose to Boise State. I think it's a lot better than Notre Dame losing to NIU. Because
I'm not saying it's a bad loss for them.
I think Notre Dame losing to NIU. I think Notre Dame losing to NIU. I don't think they make the CFP. That one loss that Notre Dame has to NIU is such a bad loss for that program that they will not make the CFP because of it.
It depends how Northern finishes.
Yes. So if Northern runs the table,
yeah,
goes undefeated,
if they get that 12 spot,
it's
then
not a bad.
It doesn't look that bad. It looks bad now because Northern's past seasons haven't been great. Right. But this is a different season. This is a different team, different coach, and Hammock's got his recruits and his players in now.
But if Northern like loses 3 or 4 games,
well, then
it's then Notre Dame is totally not making the CFP.
Then it's just the
bad loss.
Greatest win in Northern's history and a bad loss for Notre Dame.
And it's nothing up to it. So I like I said, I think the biggest hurdle was NC State, and then after that, you have to be on your P's and Q's going up against the MAC, and then we also know they got another big hurdle at the end of the year, which is the MAC championship game. If they can make the MAC championship game, but I think NIU has to run the table. They can't lose not one game this year if they want to make the CFP because their schedule is so weak. Like Boise State losing to Oregon in Oregon is not a bad loss for Boise State. Boise State can run the table in the Mountain West, win the Mountain West, and make the CFP as the top G5 team because that one loss to Oregon is not a bad loss at all. They actually should have won or could have won that game. Right?
Especially since they went into Autzen Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never easy to play there. I mean, Oregon was amongst the preseason predictions to possibly win the Big Ten in their first year. I mean, they slipped the first couple games, came out pretty much sleeping. It's like I don't know what
I haven't really been impressed with Oregon this year so far.
What?
I haven't really been impressed with Oregon so far this year.
Oh, me neither. There's a few teams that we can put in there that haven't stepped up to the level that they should. Florida State's another one. I got Wisconsin we'll probably go into here soon, so I'll leave it until we speak about them against Alabama. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a few teams that, kind of just lackadaisical came into the season, and a couple of them got smacked in the mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And that move, smack in the mouth, is a perfect segue to our next game. Is number 3 Texas gassed number 10 Michigan in the big house. 31-12. Quinn Ewers looked all but he just looked so great. He looked fantastic in this game. 24-36, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then on the other side, we had Davis Warren, who wasn't so good. 22-33, 204 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Donovan Edwards only 41 yards on the ground, but it was 24-3 going into the halftime. And Texas just looked dominant against the Michigan Wolverines, and it's going to be a tough year for Michigan with post Harbaugh era, in my opinion. And I guess I pose this question to you: how for real is Texas this year?
We will still see, because I mean they've done this in the past. They've won some big games and they falter in others. They got to go beat Oklahoma. That's one. And I mean, they're running into the SEC now, so it's a different animal than before. So
That is
how real
true.
are they?
We'll
I
see. We'll see
I
how real
feel
they
like
are when they go against Georgia.
Texas can easily compete with the top tier teams like Georgia, the Ohio State, Alabama, all of them, or they can just middle down the line,
Look,
with
look.
that 8, 9, 10, 11 seed in the college football playoff or just not make it.
I'm not worried about Oklahoma for them. We'll see how for real Texas is when they go up against the Georgia Bulldogs at home. The great thing is that they're going to be at home against Georgia. I actually think that they could beat Georgia at home. And it's lucky that it's a 12-team playoff now, because both teams, if they lose to each other, it's pretty much just a throw up. Like, both teams are still going to make the college football playoff, no matter who wins or who loses. I think both teams are still going to make it. But I think we'll see, like, if Texas is a real championship contender, if they can beat Georgia, because you got two quarterbacks in Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, who are both Heisman Trophy candidates, who are both, probably locks to be, top 5 quarterbacks picked in the first round of the draft. So that one's going to be, that's an October 19th game. That one's going to be a great game, pretty much a month and a week from now. But I think that will show if Texas is for real. And then on the flip side, Michigan, just one loss. I think the University of Michigan, this is pretty much what I'm gonna say is they have to beat Ohio State at the end of the year. Like, there's no making it into the college football playoff if you cannot beat Ohio State at the end of the year. And we know that one's in the shoe at the end of the year. They do have some tough games. I mean, they got to play USC at home. They got to play in those two, and they got to play number 9 Oregon at home. Those are 2 tough games. They got to go into Washington. Washington's going to be a tough environment to play in. I do think that they can run the table in the Big Ten the rest of the way. It's that last game that is going to determine if Michigan gets into the college football playoff, in my opinion. And that's just me, though. You may have a different thing.
I mean, they got the defense and solid run game to do it. They had an incredible turnover. I mean, not only with Harbaugh leaving, but I mean, their quarterback, their running back, they had a lot of offensive weapons gone, and they're trying to get that thing rolling. And you got Texas rolling in second game. I mean, I don't care if you're in the big house or not. I mean, Texas plays in a big house too in Austin, so they're not afraid of the environment at all. So they can ride their defense as far as they can, but the offense needs to get going here. And this Arkansas State game tomorrow, hopefully they can get some points rolling, because if they're rolling with 30 points at the most in the first 3 weeks, that's going to pose for some problems going into the Big Ten.
No, absolutely. I agree with that, man. And then the last subject we have here, Nebraska getting the revenge on Colorado after that loss last year in Colorado, 28-10. Yeah, Dylan Raiola looked all but sensational. I mean, he was just the real deal, Holyfield. He looked so poised. Patrick Mahomes Jr. Over there. He looked phenomenal. He had control of the offense. And then, on the flip side, it just looked like, Shedeur Sanders' offensive line, he was struggling there with that offensive line. They could not hold up a block for him. I'm trying to pull the stats up to see how many times he got sacked. I think it was about 6 times he got sacked. 5 or 6 times he got sacked in that game. He just was never, that offense was just never able to get in a rhythm. We all know that they can't really run the football as well as their counterparts. Yeah, Dylan Raiola, 23 of 30, 185 yards, touchdown. Stuart Sanders dropped back 38 times, 244 yards, a touchdown, 1 interception. His brother broke his forearm actually in the game, and Shiloh Sanders on that one run play by Dowdell. And then sacks. If I'm not mistaken, the kid was sacked about 4 or 5 times. I'd have to look at the whole totality of it. But nonetheless, how impressed were you looking at Nebraska as they jump into the top 25 after beating Colorado?
Absolutely. I mean, they jumped out to a quick, early, comfortable lead and never looked back. I love the pressure they put on Shador Sanders, which is what you need to do to get in his head 100%. I mean, if you can do that early, then Colorado's got a lot of issues offensively then, especially for the fact that they do not run the ball very well. Their offensive line breaks down a little too easy at times, and Nebraska exposed that pretty well last week. So, and I mean, they deserve to be in the top 25 right now. So they'll be a tough team to beat going into the Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. I think Nebraska they play great defense. I think they got a quarterback who, is going to be a star in college football. In Dylan Raiola, they run the football hard. They play deep. They get after it pretty well. They look like as a unit. Like I said, they had 6 sacks against this offensive line. And then on the flip side, you got Colorado, who is gonna go in the Big 12 play here soon. How will they have a big game this week against rival Colorado State, who's looking to revenge their loss last year, and that one's gonna get chippy this week. But how well do you think Colorado is gonna fare in the Big 12? The Big 12 doesn't get enough love. They have to face Kansas State, who's beating Arizona right now by 2 touchdowns. You got Arizona in Arizona, who beat them last year. You got to go against one of the best teams in the nation in Utah at the end of the year. Then the final game of the year is Oklahoma State. Those 2 games are at home. But how well do you think Colorado can fare in the Big 12 after just watching 2 games of them this season?
They're going to struggle. I mean, the Big 12 is a tough conference. Yeah, and it should get more love than it does. I mean, it's not as strong as the Big 10 or SEC by any means, but it does deserve, some more love, especially with teams like Utah going in there, who can definitely be amongst the top 4, top 3 teams in the country if they can stay healthy with Cameron Rising and everybody. They always have
who got banged up last week. By the way, Cameron Rising got banged up last week for Utah.
So he needs to stay healthy this season. So
they play enough good. Utah runs the one thing about Utah, and I know they're like the Big 12's worst nightmare, in my opinion, because they run the ball really physically. They're a physical team on both sides, but they run the ball in a physical manner, which they don't necessarily need Cam Rising. They will need him in the long run, but like their running game and their defense alone is going to give the Big 12 fits, because all the Big 12 wants to do, they play a lot of finesse ball outside, a lot of speedy receivers, a lot of spread offense. And Utah's just like, man, we're going to jam you up. We're going to stick you. We're going to play man to man. We're going to be physical with you. We're going to hit you in your ribs. We're going to, hit you at the point of attack. And we're going to be north-south running the football. So I think, Kyle Whittingham has, one of those teams that is the Big 12 worst nightmare. But I do, in a way, agree with you that Colorado is going to struggle just by looking at that offensive line. I did bring up speed, right? Big 12 does have defenses that they can rush the passer. Like they may not have defenses that like in the back end where it's like, oh, like this guy's like us like the stud defensive backs, safeties, and corners like you'll see in the Big Ten, like you'll see in the SEC. But the Big 12 does have pass rushers. And that one thing that I do not like about Colorado is that their offensive line isn't worth a damn. I mean, they did all this, moving around. They hit the transfer portal hard, but it's not worth anything if those guys don't have any continuity. It's hard for Dion to build a program that was as bad as Colorado's, and in this era where everybody is literally transferring at the drop of a hat. You can bring in as many recruits as you can, and then the next year, half of them are transferring out because they didn't get playing time, because they didn't get enough money in the NIL. That's another reason. I mean, the NIL, even though they're doing really well at the NIL, but it's going to be interesting after this season to see where Dion lands. I know he said he's committed to Colorado or whatnot, but it's going to be interesting to see after, his sons, leave college, Shador leaves college football. It's going to be interesting to see if, maybe Florida State calls, even though I know he doesn't have the greatest relationship these days with Florida State or ever, for that matter, even though that's his alma mater. Well, he said it's not his alma mater. He said he graduated from HBCU, but that's neither here nor there. But I do think that Colorado, I don't agree. I don't agree with you on this side, though. I do think that Colorado, as long as you got Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, Horn, and all those wide receivers, and you could spread the ball out. As long as you got a quarterback like that, who's probably going to be one of the top quarterbacks picked in the draft, either one or two, in the next draft. He's not going to be a Heisman candidate this year because they're not good enough. Like if Colorado was undefeated right now and Shador had a great game against Nebraska, he'd be the top Heisman candidate. Well, no, Quinn Ewers will still be the top, but he'd be top 3 in my opinion. So he's a Heisman candidate type of player. He's a great talent. He may not win the Heisman, but he's definitely one of the best NFL prospects. You have a chance, especially in the Big 12 where teams don't play defense. Kansas State, Arizona, a lot of these teams, Kansas, they're not playing defense like that. Utah is the only team that I can see on their record that is like killer defense, but like Texas Tech, that game's going to be like in the 50s. Kansas, that game's going to be in the 40s. Oklahoma State, we saw what the hell happened last week. Arizona's going to be a shootout. Kansas State's going to be a shootout. UCF's definitely going to be a shootout. Baylor's going to be a shootout. So Colorado has a chance to, I don't want to say the CFP, but they have a chance to make a bowl game this year. I think they can win 7-8 games. And that's a big accomplishment for Deion Sanders. As we said, year 2 in Colorado, this team sucked 2 years ago. They only won I think they won 1 game 2 years ago. Making a bowl game would be huge for them.
It's making progress.
Yeah.
But they're going to go into a lot of shootouts as long as they protect Shooter Sanders. But I'm sure Deion's going to figure that out at some point. It's not an easy turnaround going against your in-state rival on the road, but
right.
You got to make it happen at some point and keep your team alive in this type of schedule. So, it's going to be a lot of fun games for them, as they do have a lot of playmakers that can put points on the board. But without a run game, it could be tough for them too.
I agree, man. Anyways, moving forward, we got the AP Top 25. We kind of touched on this a little bit, as NIU, is moved into the top 25. They have Buffalo this week. Number 1 Georgia. Starting off with number 1, we got Georgia. At 2, we got Texas. 3, Ohio State. 4, Alabama. 5, Ole Miss, who has been playing great football this year so far with Jackson Dart. Number 6, we got Missouri. 7, Tennessee. Young freshman Nico Yamalieva, who is playing tremendous football so far for Rocky Top. At 8, we got Penn State. 9, Oregon. Dylan Gabriel. They haven't really looked that great. And one thing about Oregon is that it's tough because I feel like look at Michael Penix Jr. Second year at Washington took them to the national championship game. I feel like a transfer quarterback, it's rare to have a Cam Newton type of guy, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's Cam Newton goes from junior JUCO and he fits seamlessly into Auburn, and he takes him and wins the BCS national championship game. It's hard for a transfer quarterback in year one to grasp an offense right from the get-go. And I mean, it's an offense that Dylan Gabriel's used to. It should play in his favor. But I just think Oregon as a team just hasn't looked so great in their first 2 games. And then round out the top 10, we got Miami, who has looked great to start the season. Cam Ward, transfer from Washington State. He's played his way into probably the first round of the NFL draft so far. He is a Heisman candidate. This kid is flat out amazing. And then we got on the outside looking in, we got USC, Utah, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State, who's right now is winning, beating Arizona right now 21-7. And out of those schools, USC has an interesting quarterback, right? Miller Moss, right? Who looked amazing against LSU a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he did absolutely in a big game environment in Vegas playing LSU. He went in there and pretty much controlled that game and won it for them as USC's defense actually stepped up too, as it was pretty much a struggle throughout last year. But they played well. But he's looks good so far. So we'll see how he does against a pretty much a black and blue conference with the Big Ten, going up against some bruisers in some of the defenses out of the Big Ten, like Michigan. You got Wisconsin in there, Iowa. I mean, those
it's gonna be
in that backfield, and they're gonna want to hit you. So
the Pac-12, the Pac-12 as a whole is in for a rude awakening. Those West Coast teams going into the Big Ten. So, good luck to them. At number 15, we got Oklahoma, who I believe is a sleeper. I mean, they got a chance to kind of really do some things in the SEC if they can beat their rival in Texas. But anyways, at number 16, we got LSU, 17 Michigan, 18 Notre Dame, and Notre Dame falls down 13 spots to Northern Illinois. And to Matt's point, if Northern Illinois runs the table, it does make the college football playoff. That one loss early on is going to benefit. So Notre Dame is going to be rooting for Northern Illinois the rest of the season because they Notre Dame plays a harder schedule. They play enough ranked teams to possibly get back in, but they are rooting for Northern Illinois to kind of win out and do well this season, so that one loss doesn't look as bad. At number 19, we got Louisville, 20 Arizona, who's looking like they are probably going to lose tonight against K-State, maybe possibly drop out of the top 25. At number 21, we got Iowa State, 22 Clemson. They move up 3 slots. Number 23, Nebraska goes from unranked to ranked after their win against Colorado. They move up 7 slots. Number 24, we got Boston College, who moves up from being unranked to ranked as they beat Florida State 2 weeks ago. They have a sensational they have a really electric quarterback down there in Boston College as well. And then round out the top 25, we got our Northern Illinois Huskies, who play Buffalo this week. They jump from unranked into the top 25 so far this week. So
they play Buffalo next week.
Oh, they play Buffalo next week. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, good things coming in. For some of those teams that go from unranked to ranked: Nebraska, Boston College, Northern Illinois. in Iowa State as well, for that matter. Moving on to the games to watch, and this is pretty much maybe a quick pick 'em. But this is the segment where we go over the games to watch this week, kind of give you an analysis, and then make a pick 'em here. So first game we got on the slate, we got number 18 Notre Dame going up into Purdue this week in West Lafayette, Indiana. Notre Dame needing to win after coming off that loss to Northern Illinois. Matt James, who do you have winning? Northern Illinois is a 7.5-point favorite to win this game.
Notre Dame, you mean?
Yeah, Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite. As I just said, Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite.
Yeah. I'm going to take Notre Dame, as this is one of those games where they need to go in and prove that they're still one of the top teams that, went into Kyle Field and took down A&M first game. Play tough defense like they have the first two games. Get your offense going. I mean, it's been a little bit of a transition at quarterback for them too. So Riley's been, hit with a couple of tough defenses, especially A&M in the first game. But I think this is a big statement game for him to get things going for them. And I keep things on the ground, play good defense. I'm going to take Notre Dame. It'll be a close one, but I feel like they can pull away towards the end of the second half there against Purdue.
Yeah, I do agree. I do think that Notre Dame is going to have to, pull off a win against Purdue. They can't have two, unranked losses. If they, going to want to, win out, it's got to start here. I think they have to get Jeremiah Love the ball a lot more this week. Kind of help Riley Leonard out in the passing game. Get physical north-south. I got Notre Dame beating Purdue this week. Next game we got on the slate, we got number 16 LSU going into South Kakalaki to face the Gamecocks. Man, LSU has a really good quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier. He has been fantastic this year, 57-76, 610 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. Going up against a pretty solid South Carolina team who has looked pretty good so far this year. They beat Old Dominion 23-19. They went into Kentucky and they dominated 31-6. So how do you see this one playing out? The Gamecocks, they have a physical running game with Emory and Sellers. I mean, Sellers is not the greatest passer for South Carolina, but how do you see this one playing out for LSU and South Carolina?
Yeah,
tough environment to play too. Tough environment. They're going into South Carolina too.
Yeah, it's a tough environment. Pretty much you go to any SEC environment, it'll be tough to play in. South Carolina has played well, beat a ranked Kentucky team at the time, and this game earned itself on the college game day tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
there at the last second with that nice win there. Yeah, keep the ball on the ground, play good defense. Nussmeier is a great, passer, great thrower. He can see the field very well. And this all comes down to how well can LSU's defense keep this, under control here. I feel like LSU should be able to go on the road here. They have enough firepower through the pass game to get through this game and take the victory from Gamecocks here.
Yeah, give me LSU as well to win this football game. I think they're going to have enough firepower to win. I think it is going to be a close game. Let me see what the line is because if I'm not mistaken, it was LSU by 8.5.
6 now.
Was it 6? Yeah, LSU by 6. Yeah, LSU
a
by
morning
6.
game too.
Yeah, and it's a morning game, 11 o'clock game. So, hey, it's going to be a tough game. Hey, South Carolina has a tough defense. Bam Martin Scott, Nick, I can't even pronounce his last name, Nick Mamari. He's one of the better corners, better safeties in the league, better defensive backs in the league, in the nation. So it's going to be a tough game for LSU, but I think they can pull it off. Next game we got on the slate, we got the Civil War here with number 9 Oregon going into Corvallis early in the year too. This game's usually later in the year, but we're going into Corvallis a little early. This one's on Fox. The line is 17 for Oregon. How do you see this one playing out?
You know what? This one's an interesting one, especially for the fact that Oregon State really hasn't played anybody yet. So who knows who they are? Being one of the 2 lonesome Pac-12 teams who just added actually a few teams this week to go in there, I believe, in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take Oregon on the road in this one. I mean, this game means, everything to both teams being an in-state rival. Both schools hate each other. I mean, interesting things do happen in Corvallis, no matter what team goes in there. But I think this game means more to Oregon to keep their, hopes alive and show that they are still a top tier team coming into this season. And so they need to make a statement in this game to put a little bit of fear into teams as they still squander their way into the new conference in the Big Ten. Give me Oregon by a couple touchdowns. I don't see them covering, but I feel like they can show enough to start getting their game going.
So yeah, interesting. So Aston Jancy ran for 195 yards and 3 touchdowns against them last week.
Who hasn't he ran it against though?
I know, and he's done that.
He's one of those special running backs that's going to run 200 on any given game.
Probably break the touchdown. He reminds me of a little shorter. I mean, he's as stocky as Willis McGahee, but he's a little shorter. Willis is about 6 foot. Willis is about 6 foot. He's about 5'9", 5'10". It's right there. He reminds me so much of like Willis McGahee before the knee injury. But anyways, he ran 195 yards, 3 touchdowns against him. Oregon State has another good running back in Jam Griffin, who's familiar with their system. He played there 2 years ago, before transferring to Ole Miss and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Jam Griffin is a guy that can get going. He's got 38 carries, 249 yards, 3 touchdowns so far in this early season. But Oregon State just doesn't have enough weapons to cover and enough guys in the back end to cover this slew of wide receivers for Oregon. So give me the Oregon Ducks. I'm actually going to take the points on that one. I won't take the money line. I'd actually take the points on that one for Oregon. Next game we got on the slate, we got number 24, Boston College, going into number 6, Mizzou. Can Boston College continue the magic going into Columbia, Missouri to face the Missouri Tigers? Brady Cook and the Missouri Tigers. Missouri, really hasn't faced anybody. They played Murray State and Buffalo as well. They have Luther Godley, who's the damn receiver. It's Luther Burden, who's one of the best receivers in the nation. Brady Cook, he's off to a slow start. That probably could be due to the fact that they just blew teams out early and they're getting guys involved. But Boston College hell of a quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. He's a dual threat guy. He can get it done in both manners. His game against Florida State was a hell of a game. I mean, he had 10 of 16, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he also ran it for 73 yards and a touchdown against Florida State. How do you see this one playing out? Boston College plays really tough defense as well. They are they play really tough defense against Florida State last week or 2 weeks ago. So how do you see this one playing out against Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, both teams have gotten off to great starts. The fact here is Mizzou has not given up a point yet. I mean, granted, they haven't really played
They haven't played anybody,
but their defense went out, got the job done, shut them out. It's a very difficult environment to play in. They're in Columbia,
14.5-point favorite, by the way.
And I mean, Boston College has had some impressive wins, earned their way to that 24 spot. I mean, they went into Ireland, made Florida State look silly out there. Took one that a lot of people thought Florida State was going to handle pretty well. I mean, both defenses are playing well. I'm going to take Mizzou in a very close matchup. And this is going to be, as I just said, with them shutting the other two teams out in adversity type game for their defense. Can they hold it together in a tight matchup against a team who has gone, out of the country, on the road to beat, tough quarterbacks, tough, the supposed top tier teams. I'm kind of struggling what to say about Florida State. That's very nice here.
You can't say anything nice about Florida State.
It's like trying to help Boston College out here. They pretty much just took Florida State out of the picture altogether.
They just put them out there. They put them out their misery. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I'm going to take Mizzou in a close one at the end. I feel like being in Columbia, being at home is a big advantage for them. I mean, they are the number 6 team. Very tough defense. I think they have just enough to offensively to hold on to this one.
So I'm actually gonna go with Mizzou. I'm not gonna take the points. If I was bet, I'd bet money line. I'm not gonna take 14.5 points. I think Boston College is better than that. But I do take Mizzou by a touchdown. I do think Thomas Castellanos is going to keep them in the game with his legs. It's all about if Boston College is ACC school going against the top tier SEC school. That usually doesn't work out well. So give me Mizzou to win, probably by 7 to 10 points. I think they'll be up a little bit more than that in the game. I think they'll be in the driver's seat most of the game. Boston College will come back, make a run for it, but it'll be too late, too little, too late. Give me Mizzou to win that game at home. And then we're on to our game of the week as we got number 4 Alabama going into Madison, Wisconsin, and facing the Wisconsin Badgers this week. This is going to be an interesting game. I am wondering how, and this is actually Christian shameless plug. He'll be dropping that article here, and let me put that in the comment section. Kristen will be dropping that article tomorrow, so you guys don't want to miss out on that content from Christian Simpson here from the Daily Blitz.blog on his preview of the Wisconsin Alabama game. But anyways, needless to say, this is gonna be an interesting game because we already know Wisconsin. They love to run the ball. They're gonna want to run the ball, and we know how dominant Alabama's been with Jalen Milroe so far this year. 63-0 Western Kentucky, 42-16 against South Florida, which they were in a little bit of a dogfight with them, early on in that game. And then Wisconsin's 2 wins was Western Michigan and then South Dakota. How do you see this one playing out at Camp Randall? This one's on Fox. I believe Alabama is a 16.5-point favorite in this game. How do you see this one playing out?
Yes, we spoke earlier. This is one of my teams in Wisconsin that has not played up to the potential that I think they can be. I had one of them as the dark horse out of the Big Ten to possibly make a run into one of the top tier bowls there. I mean, they always bring a tough run game, tough defense. Going into Camp Randall, it's never a fun environment for road teams. I think they step it up a notch this game. I mean, they played two teams where I kind of felt like they went down, a notch to their level. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's definitely something you cannot do against Alabama. You need to get after Jalen Milroe early, hit jam at the line, slow him down, and keep this a ball game. Keep the score relatively low for, as long as you can. I mean, if you go into a shootout or allow Alabama's offense to get going early, it's going to be a long morning to afternoon for Wisconsin, as this is one of the first kickoffs tomorrow. I have Alabama, but I feel like Wisconsin can hold on, but Alabama's going to pull away with a late touchdown to win by 2 scores.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, hey, look, I think that, Wisconsin, the only way they can win this football game is if they get Chaz Malusi kind of going, kind of grind it out. They're gonna have to keep Jalen Milroe intact. But I mean, hey, we're looking at a Wisconsin team that is going to be physical in the trenches. Now, I will say this, that they do have a really good cornerback in Ricardo Hallman, one of the better cornerbacks in the nation. And then you got the number 4 overall prospect in Ryan Williams, right, out of Alabama, the young man there, right? So I do believe that would be an interesting game, the matchup if they do line up against each other. Remember Ryan Williams a couple weeks ago in his first 2 games, well, not a couple weeks ago, but his first 2 games, he's caught 6 passes for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he's only 18 years old. This kid is amazing. Ricardo Hallman on the other side, 7 interceptions, intercepted 7 interceptions last season. So he is a ball hawk. That led all of college football. But I do think that, it's going to be a tough time for Wisconsin to contain a guy like Jalen Milroe, who has accounted for 9 touchdowns, right, in the first 2 games, 5 passing, 4 rushing. He's completed 65% of his passes for 394 yards without an interception. He's got the most touchdowns on the run. He's the most, for FBS quarterback. He's the most dynamic player, quarterback, dual threat quarterback so far this season. It's going to be very hard for Wisconsin to keep that in check. But all in all, I think that Wisconsin is going to be able to run the football, control the clock. They're going to be able to frustrate Jalen Milroe passing the ball. He's going to have to run the football. I got the Wisconsin Badgers as my upset of the week. I know they're a 17.5 underdog. I'm going to take Wisconsin on the points at plus 17.5 in this football game. Or is it? I might have that wrong. What's the line here? I'm pulling up. I think
it's like 16.5.
16.5. I'm taking Wisconsin plus 16.5 against. I'm taking the points, but I'm taking Wisconsin to win, get the upset over Alabama, and jump right into the top 25 next week. And for Alabama, this loss does not mean that they can't make the college football playoff. But they do go into Camp Randall, and those big old linemen from Wisconsin are just gonna maul them down and control the clock. I think Melosi's gonna have a big game. And remember, Tyler Van Dyke is a transfer from Miami. I mean, didn't have the greatest career at Miami, but we're not asking Tyler Van Dyke to be perfect in this game. We're just asking him to not mess it up, to not lose the game. He did have a problem with interceptions back in Miami last year. I think he threw, double-digit interceptions last year against Alabama. But I think that offensive line is going to be the key against the Alabama defense. Anyways, moving forward to the PSW Heisman rankings. Number 1, we got Quinn Ewers in the number 1 slot. He looked amazing against Michigan. And number 2, we got Cam Ward. He's looked amazing. At 3, we got Carson Beck. 4, Jackson Dart, who's got Ole Miss in the top 5 so far this year. And then rounding out the top 5 for the Heisman rankings, we got Aston Genty of Boise State, who has 9 rushing touchdowns in 2 games. They lost to Oregon, but all in all, if Aston Genty can lead Boise State to the college football playoff, he should get an invitation to New York, depending on how the rest of the season is going to go. I think he has a big shot at breaking that touchdown record, which is, I believe, let me see who's got that record here. It's going to be the rushing touchdown record. Rushing touchdown record. I'm looking it up right now. 37 touchdowns by Barry Sanders. Yeah. And he's got, in that year, he's got the most yards in a season, too, by the way. I think Aston Genty can hit 37 touchdowns. I may not be, because think about it. They played more 12 games. I think he's already got 9 touchdowns. If he averages double digit, once they get the Mountain West Conference play, he might average 3-4 touchdowns. They utilize him so much. If he averages 3-4 touchdowns a game, 2 to 3 touchdowns, he's got to average like 2.5 to 3 touchdowns. He can beat Barry Sanders' touchdown record of 37 from 1988. And then my dark horse is Nico Lamaleva, freshman out of Tennessee. I also, I'm pretty sure people are like, why the hell don't you got Jalen Milroe in the top 5? I don't have him in the top 5. I think Aston Genty, what he's done has been more remarkable than what Jalen Milroe has done, in my opinion, despite the loss to Oregon. And then Nico Lamaleva is, he's been fantastic so far this year for the University of Tennessee. So.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that you kept Lamaleva, however the hell you say that, out of Rocky Top there, Tennessee, in the mix here. He has been fantastic so far. I mean, he went on the road and took down a ranked NC State team. I mean, he put up 51 against them, made it look easy. Genty, I mean, he breaks that record. I mean, he gets top 3 in my book, no matter what. So
if he breaks the record, he should win the Heisman.
I don't care if Boise loses another 2 or 3 games. He gets he's going to New York no matter what.
If he
Quinn Ewers runs the table, though, that's another situation. Yeah. I mean, that's where you have to look at it. Cam Ward runs it. Quinn Ewers runs it. Carson Beck is right there. So,
Beck, I think all these guys, I think, are going to make the.
I mean, Genty, look at our boy Jordan Lynch. Northern ran the table after that close loss to Iowa, and he got number 3 that year.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, I mean, Genty can do the same thing. He's right there.
Yeah, I think he can do it too. I mean, like it's just a matter of and like especially if he can get Boise into the college football playoff and break Barry Sanders' record, he's winning the Heisman. He's winning the Heisman. If he can break Barry Sanders' record of 37 touchdowns and get Boise State into the college football playoff, he's winning the Heisman. I don't care what Quinn Ewers does. I don't care what Cam Ward does. I don't care what Carson Beck does. Jackson Dart, Miller Moss, Nico Lamaleva, Jalen Milroe, whoever. He's winning the Heisman if he can do that. That anytime you break a record of of a Heisman Trophy winner, Barry Sanders, you deserve to win the Heisman. Anyways, that's been our show at College Football Showdown. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast here at Pioneer Sports World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And in case you miss us, you catch us on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. Also, please catch us on PSWMG.com. That is our website here. And catch Christian's preview of Alabama and Wisconsin on the Daily Blitz.blog. You guys don't want to miss that hot up-to-date content. But I am your host, Israel Rivera. There goes my man, Matt James, here on College Football Showdown. We will be coming back next Friday here for week 4, talking about week 3 and a lot of great other things here on College Football Showdown. But before I sign out, I just want to say, in case I missed you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.
All right. Be safe out there, kids.
Peace out, guys.